Hey everyone, Christina here for Card Player TV for another edition of Strategy, and I've got Matt Hawrilenko here to discuss Limit Hold'em. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Matt, you have been a Limit Hold'em specialist in the past. Now, I know you play a lot more mixed games, but one thing I wanted to talk about is hand ranges. First of all, what kind of hands would you play, and how would you play them differently in Limit Hold'em as opposed to no Limit Hold'em? What hands play better in Limit Hold'em?
I mean, they're two entirely different games. Like in No Limit, also it kind of depends how deep the stacks are and whatever. Like with deeper stacks, you just need to be able to threaten to have the nuts a lot more. So basically, I think in No Limit Hold'em, the deeper the stacks are, the more important it is to always be able to threaten to have the nuts in your distribution. Whereas in Limit Hold'em, like theoretically it's important, but usually it's not as big a deal. So like the small suited connectors, or one gappers or two gappers or three gappers, play just so much better in No Limit Hold'em. Whereas in Limit Hold'em, like, you know, ace highs, like, you know, you definitely prefer like an ace 5 to a 6-4 suited or something like that. Because ace high can show down and win a lot, and Limit Hold'em is a showdown game. You have to show your hand down to win. Whereas No Limit Hold'em is not usually like that.
Okay. Now, 3-betting in Limit Hold'em. What kinds of hands are you 3-betting to an opener who is a pretty tight player?
Well, it depends what position they open from, and it also depends on the game. I was actually having an interesting conversation about this with Daniel Negreanu. One thing I've been working at this year is getting a lot better at tournaments. But like in a tough game, you know, if someone opens, and so I never play more than 6-handed, and even 6-handed is a bit much sometimes, but like in a tough game, if someone opens like 2 off the button or something, I'll often 3-bet them with a hand like 8-7 suited, or you know, King 10 suited, King Jack off suited, something like that. Whereas, like in tough games, you don't often get this like, how do you play against a tight player, because they just don't exist in tough games.
Right.
But like in a hand like a tournament, right? Oh, and also in the games that I play, if I play a hand and I'm not in the big blind, I always 3-bet or fold, just because it's so important to, you know, to not bifurcate your distribution, where it's like, okay, well, I'll just call with the Jack 10 suited hands because they play better multi-way, and you know, I'll 3-bet my aces and kings, or my ace kings, because I want heads up, or I want to get value, or whatever. If you do that sort of thing in a tough game, you will get crushed.
Okay.
Like, you just can't do it. Whereas, and this is actually something I was talking with Daniel about, like, in a tournament, like, other guy, you know, like maybe the 2000 Limit Hold'em or whatever, it's a softer field, and there's much less value in disguising your hand. It's more just like playing hands for value. So in that case, you know, like if someone raises, like for the first time in my life, I actually just cold called a raise in the field when I had King Queen suited, and it felt so nasty to me. They know what I have, but they don't know what you have.
Right.
So in softer games, you can play a bit more straightforwardly like that. You know, the hands that you want to be multi-way with, well, just call. But if you're really trying to get better at your game, you know, 3-bet or fold.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, what about against super lag? If they're opening a lot and pretty light, is 3-betting even with like an 8-9 with, you know, because that doesn't have a lot of showdown value unless you hit? Is that still a good idea?
Often it is. I mean, I wouldn't 3-bet every time I get 8-9 suited, but it's good to have it in your range. And really, like, if I could play Limit Hold'em in the following way, I'd be really happy. And that is like, a guy opens, and I 3-bet my whatever, and then everyone else folds and he calls, and then we just show it down immediately. You know, like run out the 5 cards, no more betting, that's great. Because what you want to do is, like, hand values in Limit Hold'em are so close. It's like, if you can 3-bet a guy and you have like a similar hand range, or maybe slightly better, and you get to play for the overlay of the antes and blinds, like, you're doing great. And that's kind of the idea of, you know, 3-bet or folding behind Limit Hold'em, not to mention, you know, disguising your hand range.
Okay. Well, what about the concept of raising to see a free card? What do you think about that concept, and what kind of situations is that maybe a good idea?
It's an overused concept. It can make sense in some places, but oftentimes, you know, I would never raise like the flop to see a free card with a flush draw or a straight draw, because those hands are really strong. Like, they're too good to, like, not keep building the pot with. You know, because, like, if you raise to see a free card on the flop, like, you're giving away your hand when you check the turn.
Okay.
You know, and you become very easy to play against. And you can always, like, make pairs and stuff and show down the pairs and win. There's a play that I think is pretty overused, and that is raise the turn to get a free showdown when you think a guy might have a draw and you might have the best hand. But the problem there is, like, you can often get 3-bet. I mean, it might work on, and it's really board dependent. Like, it might work, like, on specific textures of boards when, like, you know, the guy's hand range is, like, he's got a middle pair and, like, a king hits, and he's, like, never ever 3-betting you. But you actually have to be really confident in that play to do it at the right time. And people just, like, it's kind of become the cool thing to do, like, raise the turn, get a free showdown with my 4th pair or whatever. Oftentimes, like, the benefits to calling the turn are, well, when he bets again on the river, if you improve, you can raise. Or, you know, you continue inducing bluffs if you just call the turn. But, you know, like, there's the case where some guys might not bet again on the river in a specific situation, but, like, it has to be, like, you know, in loose games and in tough games, people are value betting really thin. So I do not like that play generally. Okay. Because, like, you want to give a guy the chance to barrel off. And, like, hands like 4th pair are great for catching guys barreling off.
All right, well, thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you.
Chris Arnett with Matt Hawrilenko for Card Player TV.